newspapers for the second time this morning. The political editor of The Sun on Sunday, David Wooding, and the broadcaster, Liz Kershaw, both join us. And next week, guys, I don't know how many of you, and you watching and listening, have planned or will rely on a train journey, but there's going to be a lot of disruption. David, you go to The Sun, and the government are talking tough on this one.
Yes, I mean, the rail strike next week, 3 days, 21st, 23rd, 25th. It's going right into the weekend, and they're advising people not to travel at all next week if they're using the trains. And Grant Shapps is writing a piece, Grant Shapps being the Transport Secretary, in The Sun today, in which he says, he calls the rail unions dinosaurs and says, we will not surrender to their demands. Now, the background of this strike is it's all about terms and conditions and jobs. The average rail worker is on 44,000. The average train driver is on 59,000. They're the median salaries. But they're going on strike for more pay and to protect jobs from being cut. It's the worst strike since the 1980s. Grant Shapps says in this piece, he points out that this is really a public service in as much as it costs £20 billion to run the network. But from rail fares and income from freight, they only receive £4 billion. So we, the
$4 billion. 16 billion.
16 billion pounds is being propped up by we, the taxpayer. But yet only...
Whose fault's that? Whoever sold off the tracks and the trains and everything to do with that.
And then we are subsidising it to that extent. And 90% of people don't use don't use the train regularly. I mean, particularly if you go into the north of England, people drive. Yeah. They have to drive. The services aren't good enough. It's a big issue down in London where people have to commute necessarily, and that's where all the chaos is going to be. That works out at £600 for every household in the UK. So,
but okay, what's the alternative? Don't subsidise it and do without it?
Well, no, you can't. Yeah,
well, you can't.
You can't.
You're moaning about.
No, what the moaning about is that these people, the drivers on all this money.
When you say all this money, it depends. All these things are relative. You know, people could look at you and they could say, look at David Wooding and all that money. And you'll say, but look at the hours I've got to do and the expertise I've got to have. I mean, you can argue the same for them. I do think what we've got, David, is a right mess on the rails.
Absolutely.
And that is a mess created by successive governments. And how we don't see rail journeys as a service, we see it as some sort of business. And it's the same as bus services.
It's neither one or the other at the moment. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the point I was making is that people who don't use the trains, who are subsidising people who are earning decent salaries, will feel aggrieved that they are paying that sort of money out and that they're going on strike. It won't affect them probably, but that's the point.
But you know,
you're right. Yeah. It was nationalised, and now it's neither a nationalised service or a private service.
We would almost be better off giving train travel free, or in a lot of cases free, because then it would encourage people to use it, and it wouldn't cost us.
Well, it's not. It's almost free because I've got a senior rail card. And
do you use it then?
Yeah, well, I haven't been on the train for 2 years, so it had run out, so I renewed it, and I took a train down yesterday, because I was going out last night, and I couldn't believe it. I presented, I said, I'll have a off-peak return to London, please. Coming back Friday, here's my senior rail card. Right, Milton Keynes to London Euston, 60 miles. And back again on Friday. How much?
Well, I thought it's free for you.
No, it's not free. You get a third off. £10.40 to travel 120 miles on the train. So cheap. Amazing. So, you know, maybe it's a bit too cheap, but
I say that, but then if you're a commuter in some parts of the southeast of England, you could be paying £4,000 or £5,000.
Well, if you travel peak time, then if you want a season ticket from Milton Keynes to London, it's £7,500 a year, and lots of people have said that. But the thing about...
The only train journey I use is to Manchester to go and see football, and it's hugely expensive.
Yeah, it's going to be like 350 quid.
Absolutely.
Whereas I'm going to The Hague in Holland on Eurostar for £39
How did you work out one? Is that because of your rail card again?
No, that's just,
Booking in advance.
Booking in advance, £39. Rail travel is heavily subsidised on the continent and is far more luxurious and efficient. So we've got to make our minds up, because on the one hand they say get off the roads, and the other hand they charge you 350 quid to go to Manchester. But I would say about the unions, the reason that the drivers and the rest of the train workers are on decent salaries is because of unions. It's because of unions that they're not on 0 hours contracts and £8 something an hour. And
so that's in praise of unions.
Yes, unions have transformed people's lives in this country from my grandparents' day, when they were working at 12 in the mills. And unions, the Labour movement, the Labour Party, transformed people's lives. And in the last 30, 40 years, all the unions' powers mainly have been eroded, and that's why there are so many people in crappy jobs with no rights, and we've got to strike a balance. There are still some unions remaining, like the RMT and ASLEM, who are immensely powerful.
Yes.
But there are lots of people who don't have access to union membership and are exploited.
And I get all that, totally get all that. And but I think the point David's making is that the temperature of the country at the minute, and a lot of people will think, look, you're on decent money. They'll say they haven't had a pay rise in 3 years or not, but you're saying read the room at the minute. And this is not going to be a popular strike.
And of course, it's opened up a bit of a political divide here, because the Conservatives will hammer Labour, who are a little bit hesitant about criticising unions. Now, Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, has said, you know, we back the commuters, but one of two of his front bench have said, we're with the unions, so there's a bit of a schism.
I just wonder, all the young people at supposed to be going to Glastonbury next week, and let's not forget, it's 300,000, it's like the city size of Coventry. They go by train, and mainly. Those roads are going to be log jammed, artists aren't going to be able to get in, workers aren't being able to get in, and the very kids who cheered Jeremy Corbyn 4 years ago, I wonder how thrilled they're going to be if if it's the Labour Party supporting the strike. I support unions. It is going to be massively inconvenient next week.
I mean, some parts of the country are literally going to grind to a halt next week, and for children who are taking exams as well next week.
People trying to go on. People trying to go on holiday.
Liz, I want to ask you about Ukraine, because we have kind of seen it fall off at the front pages of the newspapers. Page 34 today in the Times. Given to Putin is the story.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a book I read about 25 years ago called The Past Is Myself by Christabel Bielenberg. I'm not being pretentious, but she was an English woman who married a German and found herself in Nazi Germany when World War II broke out, and the dilemmas that she and her family and her neighbours faced in whether you took on the Nazis, whether you aided your Jewish neighbours. It was a question of personal conscience, and this is a similar thing but on a massive scale. So a new poll shows, in the light of President Macron saying we mustn't humiliate Russia, we must appease them, and the President of Poland saying, did anyone speak to Adolf Hitler this way? Did someone say he should be able to save face? Well, that's the leadership, but the polarisation is at popular level. And in a poll of 10 countries, overall, 35% of Europeans said they wanted peace. In other words, just let Putin have the land that is taken, and let's shut this down and get everything back under control. We can't afford this. Only 22% voted for justice, which means we absolutely smash Putin and drive him back and beat him. And it varied between different countries, and it's more or less Western Europe and Eastern Europe. So Western European countries like France and Italy, Germany and even the UK are massively in favour of appeasing him, and the countries on the border who are under threat themselves, like Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, are saying no, we must fight this.
Well, that makes sense geographically, doesn't it? But I suppose if you let Putin get away with this, it's where is the line?
Let us know your views on that. David, we go to you, and we're talking about rogue firms who plague us with nuisance calls will face fines, big fines under new plans. Tell me more.
Yes, this is Nadine Dorries, the Culture Secretary. She's going to give greater powers to the Information Commissioner's Office to impose fines. At the moment, the limit is £500,000. She's going to raise that to £17.5 million. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was working from home during the pandemic, I was astonished by how often the landline was ringing with news. I hear you've had an accident. Yes, I had an accident.
It's the only people that
25
ring a
years ago.
landline now, isn't it?
And there's also the nuisance calls, of course, the illegal scamsters, which is another issue altogether. But this is people like those working for solicitors firms, trying to do car accident claims, insuring the household goods, the cooker and the washing machine and so forth. All sorts of scams. And there was something like 2.5 million fines issued last year. But the thing is, there's some companies which are just plaguing elderly people and vulnerable people and conning them into signing up
my
things
phone
they
rings
can't
now,
afford.
it says spam alert on it. I don't know how the phone can tell it's a spam thing, but then there's no chance of me answering if it's like that. Liz, you got under a minute to tell me about holiday packing, because this is in the Mail, page 38, and the question is, would you pay a stylist, a holiday stylist, to tell you what to pack? Answer: yes, I would.
Okay, Eamonn, it's going to cost you £150 an hour.
I'd still pay.
So potentially £5 grand. But I do absolutely, I'm sure.
£5 grand? What are you taking that's going to cut what?
Well, that's what this woman can charge up to £5 grand
Wow.
to pack for a whole family of 4. But I hate packing because you have to think ahead.
Oh.
You have to think, what am I going to wear a week on Tuesday
Yes.
in Tenerife?
Yeah.
I've got walking up onto a cruise ship and thought, God, I didn't pack any knickers. You know, it's just awful. I came down yesterday and I realised I haven't got any I haven't got any suitable footwear.
You need this.
I need this. What a luxury. I need it, but it's expensive.
You know what I hate to do? When I go abroad and I panic and I end up throwing stuff in the last minute, you're packing the night before, and then you come back from your holiday and there's unused clothes.
Half of it.
And you're sitting back,
I
it's
do.
all my nerves.
Yeah.
I think to myself, why did I do that all that way?
Yeah.
Or you could just be like my wife and you bring 7 suitcases.
I would love to do what some people do, which is go with nothing and buy everything while you're there.
Well, that's a risk, though, isn't it?
It's a big risk.
You're in the tourist shops in some places. You're not.
Okay, guys, thanks very much indeed. They're going to be back in 45 minutes' time, bringing you up to date.